first thing that you want to do is you want to choose a nice, simple design. Simple does not mean it's boring, it just means that it's simple. So you can see here that I have this example of different designs that you can use to make things interesting. I'm gonna start with this one to take you through the process so you can see what it looks like. When you're selecting your design, and feel free to use these designs, but you can use other ones as well. When you're selecting your design, think about how you want it to look in the end. Think about what you want your negative space to be. So on this, it's going to be the space that's white. Whatever is white is what you're gonna carve. Think about that. Whatever is white here is what you're gonna carve. So this is not gonna require a lot of carving at all. This is gonna require a lot of really thin carves to get around this stem. The other thing you can think about is you could do this in two pieces. So you could do the stem and then you could do the strawberry separately. This also is not gonna require too many carves, but it's going to be, it's gonna take some time to get around the intricate details of these stars. But we're gonna start with this one. The first thing that we do is we find a way to get our pattern on our block. And the way that we do it is with this tracing paper. So you're just gonna put your tracing paper over your design, and then you're gonna get a pencil. And you're going to trace your design. You wanna try and help yourself out and shade in the black areas, because even though a design can be pretty simple, you can forget by the time you actually end up getting to your block. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be perfect, because as I've said, block printing is a craft of imperfections. You also don't need to color it in all the way. It's just so you know what you're not supposed to carve. The other thing that you can do if you want is you could always draw directly on your block. All that really matters in the end is what you end up carving. Now you're gonna get your block. And this is a nice easy carve block, so it's not gonna be too challenging. And you wanna carve on the gray side, because the way that you know whether or not you've carved deep enough is that you should be able to see the white on the other side. If you are still seeing any gray that you don't want printed on your fabric, then you need to carve deeper. But we're gonna put it gray side up. We're gonna put our design down. We're gonna hold down a design firmly with one hand, and then with the other, slowly rub the graphite onto our block. And you'll see, there it is. There are some areas where I need to touch up a little bit, and that's okay. You can draw directly on your block. This is your Leno Cutter. You'll see that it has 6 different blades on it. You might find that one of yours slipped out like this and it's hiding, but you should be able to find 6 blades of varying degrees from bigger to smaller. The ones I really like to use are the one that's 3rd from the bottom, as well as the one that's 2nd from the top. And I'll show you what those look like a little bit closer. So here's my cutter with my blades in it. You can put the blades in the back. And first, let's talk about how to install your blade. So you'll see as you look at the head of the cutter that there are a couple of components, and you can see those components more when you screw it to the left to open it. Don't screw it too far. So when you're looking at it, you don't want this to come all the way off. It's kind of a pain to put back on. Not impossible, but a pain. But you don't want it quite as, you don't want it to come off. So you'll see all these different pieces in it. What you're going to do is you're going to take the bottom curved part of the blade. So here is the top of the blade, and here is the bottom of the blade. And you're going to install the blade into this. Shouldn't move that much. If you put it in and it won't go in, or see how this is very crooked? You want it to be straight up. Let's talk about how to hold your blade. For control's sake, you don't want to hold it like a pencil, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. You don't want to hold it like a pencil. Instead, what you want to do is when you get the back and you want to hold it like this, have your pointer finger here, you want the blade scooper, so the well of the blade, facing up. You don't want it facing down. You want it facing up. And this is how you hold it. It gives you, you'll see that it gives you more control as we start moving things around. Here it is for my lefties. So you want it up like this. It just gives you a bit more control. In terms of which blades you should use, it's really up to you. And as you get to learn about this craft even more, you'll understand what works best for you. Let's pretend that you do accidentally screw this all the way out by mistake. It's pretty simple to put it back in. So you just want to put them so that they're hugged together again. Put them face down into your cutter. Get the bottom part and then just screw it back in. Not the end of the world. And you'll see it in there. There you go. Okay, now that you know how to use your Leno cutter, let's get started cutting. I like to do perimeter first. That is just my personal preference. But you can start wherever you'd like to. Notice this has a lot of curves. The first thing that you want to think about is about moving your block and not your hand when you're going around curves. So here I am, and I'm gonna move around, move the block around, I mean. When you come to things, corners like this, you wanna try and go out from the corner. So when you test, you can use just your leftover scratch paper or leftover tracing paper or any paper you want. You're going to test on paper first. So you're just going to take a dollop of your ink. You don't need too much. And then you're going to roll it out until there's a nice thin layer. You want like a nice thin layer on your brayer. You're gonna roll it on your design. For this first one, more is better. Don't worry about the pencil. It won't show up. Now is a good time to do a preliminary check and make sure everything that's blue is what you want to have printed. So for example, this little guy, I don't even know if you can see that. Might have been trouble, but he's not, but you can see a little bit there. That shouldn't be trouble, but we're gonna find out. So you want to take it, put it face down on your paper. You want to press firmly. This is pretty easy because it's a pretty small design, but if you were using that whole block, you would definitely want to press all over, and then you're slowly on one side gonna peel it up. So some of what you're seeing is the nature that it's tracing paper. That's what this detail is. But just to be safe, what I'm gonna do is make sure that the block is very saturated so that doesn't happen. You can see that this did show up a little bit, so you can clean that up if you want. The thing to know about your canvas is that it has a texture to it, so there's a good chance that your design is not going to quite look the way that you think it's going to look, and that's okay because we're accounting for that texture. You can decide where you want to put your block. I tend to love to just put like one nice design in the middle, but you could do a pattern, you could do all kinds of fun stuff. So you're going to get your ink. nice and on your block. We're just gonna put it in this little corner here to start. Press very firmly. That is what gets your design on the fabric. So you can see a couple of things happening. You can see the texture, right? You can see that there's some pieces that are missing here. Well, how we're gonna resolve this, try to resolve this, is to add more ink or paint. Let's see if that helps. You don't want it to be too slick. We're gonna do one layer. We're gonna make sure that I didn't miss any of the corners because that really should have printed. We're gonna take a little bit off. And we're gonna do also make sure that we press evenly all the way around because that could have been another reason why it didn't print the way that I wanted it to. And then, so you can see that's much better. Some of this here is just the nature of the fact that we're using paint instead of ink on a canvas. It's just a little bit thicker, so that's why it's a little bit splotchy. But you can see the difference in pigmentation between these two, and that is because I use a lot more ink here. Now, I also do love this distressed look, so that could be a thing. I like both of these prints, but if I just want to show you two differences between your color. You could always rinse off your block and then try again with another color. That's one of the reasons why you have two in your kit. And then so long as you rinse it off with warm water, you could use this block as many times as you want. It's okay if there's still ink on it or paint on it after you finish. It won't print later. But yeah, I hope you have fun.